The Gospel of the Lord. Well, good morning. You know, the timing of the story of Jesus losing his temper and being angry, the timing in this gospel versus the other three gospels is very different. All four gospels talk about this story. But you see in Mark, Matthew, and Luke, it happens way later in time, after Jesus' teaching, all his miracles and healings, then it happens. But we just read John. John puts it right out there. This is chapter 2. You see, Jesus in John's gospel is not a passive or gentle Jesus. He's a Jesus who corrects his people when they need to be corrected. And you know, I don't think it really matters which gospel writer we like better or worse, but the stories are ultimately the same. And the reason I like that story is it's one of the beautiful gospel passages that shows us Jesus in his full humanity. In fact, John says in the very line, what was the last line I read? I know very well about humanity. Because Jesus got angry. He lost his temper. Don't we do that? We get angry and lose our temper. Here's the difference. When Jesus did it, he didn't sin. Because when he did it at every occasion, he was doing something good. There's a time he got angry when he was healing a person. Or today's story when he's flipping over tables, money-changing tables. What was he doing? He was trying to get their priority, their focus from making money versus worshiping the Lord. Now, speaking about worshiping the Lord, my homily today is going to focus on the first reading, which had to do with the Ten Commandments. Now, we all know that the Ten Commandments, basically what they are is a summary of the 613 Old Testament laws, right? And then we know in the New Testament that Jesus took that summary and he summarized them himself by simply saying, love God and love your neighbor, right? Now, when you look at those commandments, think of the word 10 commandments. They're commands. They're not just good things to do. They're not the ideal. We're commanded to do them. And what's so beautiful about them is they provide us a blueprint on how we are to live our life. And you know, they're designed well, aren't they? Because there's really two phases of commandments. There's the first phase and the second. First phase has the first 4 commandments. And they all have to do with what? To love God. Don't worship any other God before me. Don't worship idols. Don't misuse my name. Keep holy the Sabbath. Those are all oriented us to love God. And then the last 6 have to do with loving your neighbor. Honor your mother and father. Don't murder. Don't steal. Don't commit adultery. Don't give false witness. Don't covet. So the order all makes sense. It's this blueprint for life. But when you really dissect those 10 commandments, you really need to focus on commandment number 1. Because commandment number 1 is the foundation of all the other commandments. It's the one where Jesus says, you are to love your God with your whole heart, your whole soul, and your whole mind. You notice Jesus didn't say, love your God with a piece of your heart, a piece of your soul, a piece of your mind. We are to love him with our whole being, Our orientation has to be on that. And if we get the first commandment right and we're compliant with the first commandment, then the other 3 will just follow along, and then those 6 will be a piece of cake. But we really got to focus on that first one. A loving God and not worshiping any others. And then that idol thing and all that, that'll come. Now, here's the problem. If we look at the people in the Old Testament, they used to worship things made out of stone and wood and gold, the gold calf thing. We don't do that. We're sophisticated Christians. We don't do that. What we tend to idolize is things like money, right? Material things, social media, right? There are many people in the world today, including our young people, and maybe even especially our young people, who are addicted to text messaging, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, television. Click, 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 click. Our focus is on this infotainment stuff. And folks, even if you're not addicted to those things, do you spend more time doing those things than you do prayer? Reading Scripture and thinking about the Scripture you just read. Helping a person in need. Sharing your faith with someone. You see, the first commandment says we need to prioritize with our whole heart, our whole soul, our whole mind on sacred time. Do we do that? Now look, I'm preaching to myself as well as I'm preaching to you. One of the things I love and have a passion for is TV. I love the Food Network. I love the Travel Channel. I love these crime shows like NCIS and Blue Bloods and Hawaii Five-0. I just love it. Now, thanks be to God, during an average weekday, the time I spend in sacredness and Scripture and prayer versus the time I do with TV, it may be equal. Certainly not more, but it might be equal. Because when I get up in the morning, I write a reflection and a prayer for my siblings, my colleagues, and friends. And then I do morning prayer. Then I go to the chancery, and I'm a daily communicant. I go to weekday Mass, and I spend the time in Mass. And then throughout the day, there's various points where I do other devotionals. And then for a short period of time at night, I do evening prayer with Scripture. And so it's at least equal. But you know what? On a weekend, I fully blow it. I'm not compliant with that first commandment because my TV time and my sports time, watching sports or my son's sports, it clearly is more time than I spend reading Scripture, sharing my faith, helping others. So I'm challenging myself to give a wholehearted effort on my weekends to lessen the number of hours doing those things and do more time with the sacred. But I'm also challenging all of you. When you go home from Mass today, prayerfully reflect and add up the minutes that you spend, minutes or hours, text messaging, Instagramming, Facebooking, Twittering, watching television, golfing, whatever it is. Add those minutes and then compare it to the number of minutes you're sharing your faith, reading Scripture, praying, and doing devotionals. Are they at least equal? Or are these other things up here? You see, we are not compliant with that commandment that we're commanded to do if we seek our satisfaction in these other things and we prioritize these other things. But we are in compliance with that first commandment if we simply do what Jesus said. Love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind.